for Monday, June 14th, 2021, Flag Day, I believe.
That's right.
So, anyway, first item I have on tonight's agenda, before we turn into the Tom James show, is Resolution 7621. That is a resolution to appropriate from the LDOT fund for the purchase of a Craftco Patch 2 hot mastic machine, whatever that is. And that is coming through Public Works. Mr. President,
Thank you. I had a nice little handout presented at the Public Works meeting on Friday. But Greg's going to explain a little bit about this machine. I think it's super cool, just if my opinion matters. So,
is it this one?
yes.
You guys have it?
I got one here. I got one here I can pass around.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't seen it.
I guess. Council get a ride around on it?
What's that?
We get a ride around on it?
It's not self-propelled.
It's a pull type.
Yeah,
It might-
it's not that. It's cool, but it's
Get a
not that
little
cool.
bit of a hot run.
All right, Greg, you're up.
Basically, the machine's going to take place of, if everybody remembers the snafu we had up in River Valley Highlands last year when we did the Durapatch work up there, getting ready for microsurfacing, and it blew up. The only other option we had was to mill and asphalt. So we were looking at some other options and we found this. We test drove it, and it worked out real well. Part of the program they got, which is on that sheet that's going around, is if you buy the material, then they give you the machine to use to put the material down. The material at that cost is $1.54 a pound, so it gets pretty expensive. So when you put down, or if you have your own machine, then that cost goes to 59.5 cents a pound. So basically, we're giving them 94.5 cents a pound, just to use the machine. Each skid, which is about what we can put down in a day, which is about 2,400 pounds, is about $2,200 a day is what it costs us to use that machine. I didn't have any intentions of purchasing this machine this year. I had every intention of putting it in the budget. But, you know, we had so much work to do before the microsurfacing up there that it just didn't make sense not to purchase the machine. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Hentz? Mrs. Bobbitt?
So I apologize for not calling you
That's
ahead of
fine.
time.
That's fine.
But so, forgive my ignorance, so this is for hot mix?
No.
And this is for in the summer, or what is this for?
No, this machine is, think about it as a crack sealing machine without a wand. You don't, I mean, this has got a lift gate on the back side, and the material, the mastic material is it's a hard crack seal basically with aggregate in it. So it bridges really nice. It goes down about 450 degrees, and once it cures, which usually is half an hour, it's non-tracking. You can't track it no matter what you do. So it's a really nice, efficient way to bridge the big long transverse cracks that we have in some of the neighborhoods. So that's what we're working towards right now.
How wide is it? How wide of a, when it's laying down, this aggregate
You can
and this?
make it, you can make your own boxes. So you can make it anywhere from 6 inches wide and trail it behind the machine to fill, a crack, or you can make it as wide as 24 inches to bridge.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say that, yes, we still will be filling potholes like you have done. It's not for big potholes. What it's really good in is if you have a pavement, you said transverse cracks, it kind of goes down and it cracks, creates a crack or down, and so you hear a bump as you do a car. It's really great for leveling. And it's really been up there at the Highlands. I've got out personally, just tried to poke into it, see how solid it is. But I'm very impressed with it, and that's why I asked him to move forward with it. But it's very unique for smaller things in areas that we would never put, like pothole material, because it really will not last. I'm really looking forward to, and that's where we address to maybe come to council tonight, because I like to go into, it really has the ability to go a little bit into cooler season, not dead winter, of course. But I think it'd be a great use of this product to level more roads and things that we've not really been able to do before.
We finished up, I think they got just one half a street left up in River Valley Highlands. They finished up there with what they had today. They'll finish up there in the morning, and then they're moving over to Wesley Way. So we're gonna start moving this thing into the different neighborhoods, excuse me, where the roadways are in pretty good shape, but it's just got those bump and big long cracks, and we're gonna work them through. And
Further questions for Mr. Hintz? Mr. James?
Just real quick, did you mention what the payback was for it? About 3 years? 2 years?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I mean, it's on my piece of paper that I sent around.
What's the payback?
There somewhere.
No,
Melody.
excuse me, it's, if I were to purchase a semi-load at the 58.5 cents a pound, or 59.5 cents a pound, excuse me, it's about 29,000. So if we were still renting a machine, a semi-load's about 73,000. So the difference
Yeah.
being about 40,000 per semi-load.
About a year and a half then,
About a year and a half.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, and that's per semi-load.
yeah.
Assuming that you have this, that you put the same amount down year over year.
Exactly, yeah, you're right.
Okay,
Plan going forward is at least one, possibly two semi-loads a year.
okay. Further questions? Mrs. Bobbitt?
I think I'll just call you out, because I really don't understand. I
Okay.
mean, you're actually purchasing a piece of machinery and the pallet of mixing component, right?
It's, the material comes in 60-pound blocks, and there's,
It'll be melted down.
yeah,
Okay,
it's a,
is the aggregate, you mentioned
Yep,
aggregate?
aggregate's
That's
already built
in it,
right
So
in.
we're not gonna go anyplace and buy
No.
the mixture?
nope,
Okay.
it's all
I'll call
built
you,
right in.
because I don't understand it.
That's fine, that's fine.
And I understand a lot about pavement.
Other questions? I have a couple. So, what's the lifespan of this machine?
20, I'm figuring on 20 years. It could be longer than that. A lot of it depends on, of course, how much you use it, but, they're rebuildable. So, the fire, or the box itself, the hopper, actually is jacketed in hot oil. I mean, it uses hot oil around a jacket. So the jacket is replaceable if it wears out. After you and I talked this morning, I had made a couple phone calls, and there are people out there that are running these that are 18, 19 years old that really haven't done anything to them other than maybe a bearing here or a bearing there. So,
All right. Other questions? Yes, Mrs. Tina.
This might have already been answered, and you might have said it, but what is a warranty on it? Is there anything?
it's a standard industry warranty. It comes with a 12-month warranty on manufacturer's defects.
Effectively, as soon as you drive it off a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Melody, you want another one? Want to take another shot at him? No?
No, we gotta get moving on.
Oh, well, all right then. All right, Mr. Schoonover, what's your pleasure here?
3 readings, you as my second,
All right,
please.
perfect. Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. All right, so we'll get 3 readings on 7621. Next item I have is 7721. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Zane Alley Sewer Lining Project. This is coming through water pollution. Mr. James?
Yes, I would like to yield some time to Denise Cruz. She actually will probably stay at the podium for several of these here, but Denise, thank you for your attendance.
Good evening. So summertime, it's time to get out and do some construction projects, and I had actually hoped to get out sooner on some of these. 77-21 is to authorize the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Zane Alley sewer lining project that's actually the sewer right behind this building. It'll be from Broad Street to Columbus Street. We found a very damaged section in there last summer. We tried to dig it up and replace it. There's an AT&T fiber line that's right on top of it, and we were not able to do that. We were concerned about the ability to line it. We've had a consulting engineer look at it and said, yes, we can line it. So this will get that project out to bid. We won't do it until after the festival. So we're requesting 2 readings on this.
Questions? What's your pleasure, Mr. James?
2 readings, and Mr. Hall is my second.
All right, so we will go 2 readings on 7721 with Mr. Hall as the second. Next item I have is Resolution 7821. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the combined sewer overflow 1029 reconstruction project. Mr. James, coming again through your committee.
And once again, I'll yield time to Ms. Denise Cruz for this explanation.
CSO 1029 is located on Fetters Run on West 6th Avenue, so it's right there across the park. We've done stream restoration downstream, and we've done some sewer work in the vicinity. This actually rebuilds the chamber, changes the overflow, raises the overflow, and is a part of our long-term control plan. We've had it around for a while. We tried to get some grant funds for it and couldn't, so we're at the point that Ohio EPA is requiring us to get plans in and get the project underway.
Questions? Yes.
I think I made a typo in the parentheses. Should it be CSO 1029? Okay, I'll fix that. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. James, what's your pleasure on this?
2 readings, and Ms. Becky Tingley will be my second on that.
We have 2 readings on 7821. Thank you. Next item is 7921. That is a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Wiley Road Water Loop Project. Mr. James, again coming through your committee.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Stoughton. Actually, I'll yield time again to Ms. Denise to have a little more explanation on this one.
So this project will connect the Rock Mill Corporate Park to the Rural Industrial Park across US 33. We currently only have 1 feed for the water line across 33 that serves Wiley Road, State Route 188, and the feed up to the Mount Zion water tank. It's never a good idea just to have 1 feed into a water tank, so this will allow us to loop that line, give us some more reliability on service, increase pressures and fire flows in the area.
Questions on 7921? Anyone? Yes.
Is this gonna be boring, right, underneath the highway? Is that-
Yes, this will bore under the highway.
Okay.
What you're asking is a boring project.
That's what I do too.
My projects are
Yeah.
never boring.
All right, Mr. James, what's your pleasure on this one?
2 readings, please, and Mr. Hall. will be my
Readings
second.
on 7921. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 8021, a resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and apply to participate in the Ohio EPA Water Pollution Control Loan Fund and execute contracts as required. Mr. James, again through your committee.
Yes, Denise will continue to provide some additional explanation for us.
This will allow us to apply for a loan for the Upper Hocking Phase 2 expansion. This is necessary for development in the state route, or the US Route 33 service area. It will double the plant capacity from 2 million gallons per day to 4 million gallons a day. We're currently running about 1.8 million gallons a day, so we're kind of bumping up against our capacity there. And wastewater treatment plants don't fall out of the sky, so we need a little time to get the plant built. The current project cost is $43 million. I had an email from the consultant this week that prices, as for other commodities, are kind of all over the place. So the price that they'll give us, and the estimate's gonna be higher than what we expected to be when we actually did the project, in the fall. But our loan will be based on the actual bid prices.
Okay. Questions? Mr. James?
This one will be 3 readings, and Miss Becky Keener will be my second on that one.
All right, we'll go 3 readings on 8021. Next item I have is Resolution 8221. That's a resolution authorizing a tax incentive review council in alignment with the ORC Section 5709.85, coming through Economic Development. Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, sir. So, we should have created this review commission, or council, probably when the Edie Road TIF was approved years ago, but it needs to be created for any future TIF, approval, review, and this council will allow the city's representatives to determine what kind of incentives they might give based on the council's review and approval. But the legislation will put this in place and it's required by law.
I have a question for you. Does this committee consider things before the actual TIF is brought to council, or is it after a TIF has been approved? Or do we
I'll
know
forward that to the law director.
Yeah, this is actually, so these Turks or tax incentive review committees are actually after, in answer to your question. So a TIF is in place, and what they do is this committee annually sits down and does a review of any and all TIFs we have outstanding, look in those, I mean, basically identifying any issues, any problems with those, and it's just this yearly review that they'll do to make sure that those are all
So,
operating.
yeah, so it's after the fact, so it's kind of like the Turk that the county has a little bit, that I was sat on for a while, but it's no longer an active committee.
Yeah, and yes, exactly. You were on the one designated on that for many years or whatever, so this is, we need to kind of reinstitute this and make sure that we're reviewing our TIFs.
Do we have to throw the Edie Road TIF in here?
Yeah, absolutely. When we're doing our yearly, as long as we still have outstanding bond debt on that and we're paying it down. How many years do we have left on that one?
A lot.
What was 07, right? 30 years, so 2037, is that right?
2037.
Huh? 2038.
Don't
So,
count on me
yep,
helping you.
yep, that one will be on the list.
Be some youngins around here. Any questions on this? This is certainly a required piece, and then I think we're going to create the TIF and talk about timber top in the ordinance, I think. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, so what's your timing on this, Don?
Gonna ask for suspension, and so have you be the second.
Okay, perfect. So this is providing oversight to TIFs to make sure they're being reviewed, so.
I would, if I could, one last thing, it's
Sure.
like, if we could, and I don't mean to put any undue pressure on our council president or whatever, but one of these is, once it's passed or whatever, your designation as a member of council to be on that committee, so. Just put it out there for you.
They're lining up.
Huh?
They're lining up.
I can hear the money shuffling already.
That's a
People just
member of
paying.
Lancaster City Council appointed by council president. So-
Yeah. Congratulations.
I make a motion.
No, that's a council president appointment. I don't think you can do that.
Just making it stick.
Slide over a Rooster's gift card to him real quick. All right, so we will suspend on 8221. Thanks, Don, I appreciate that. Next item we have is ordinance 1921. This is an ordinance to create a TIF for lots 1 and 2 in Block A in the Timber Top subdivision Phase 1. Coming through Economic Development, Mr. McDaniel, your piece again.
Yes, we discussed this in significant detail last meeting, but I thought it'd be worth going through some highlights of the TIF summary. The Developers Limited Group and Vision Development are requesting a 30-year TIF in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code. Lancaster City Schools have been involved in the process and on board with the developer's request. This is a developer reimbursement TIF. What that means is the developer is responsible for securing the bond funding for the public infrastructure improvements and are solely liable for servicing the bond debt with the exempted real estate tax dollars. And this is important, the TIF applies only to public infrastructure improvements for the commercial development of the properties and does not and will not apply to single-family home development. The public improvement estimated, according to the Phase 1 cost, $3,822,000. And they break that down, but also another $2,626,000 for turn lanes, storm, sanitary storm sewers, road construction, erosion control, et cetera. All this is outlined in the legislation. The investment the developer is putting into the property, Lemon Development Group, is building Danbury Senior Living, 81-unit facility with 12 independent living villas totaling 86,000 square feet. Estimated incremental value of the villas, $3,420,000. Estimated incremental value of the senior residential care facility, $6,300,000. And Vision Development is building luxury apartments on the property, 204 units, estimated incremental value of $18,360,000. The developers are securing the bond funding in the amount of $4,550,000. This is being done through Columbus Franklin County Finance Authority of 30 years, and they give the interest rate here. Again, Lancaster City Schools have been involved in the revenue sharing discussions, and that's also included in the ordinance language. Let's see. Legislation will consist of the TIF ordinance, which we're looking at tonight, and authorize the project TIF and further authorize the city to enter into the agreements. I guess that would conclude the remarks I have. I'm not sure if the law director wants to add anything to that.
No?
He is a lawyer, so he typically wants to talk, but.
He might be responsible for the summary here, too.
So, really, so the TIF value is what, $4.5 million?
$4,550,000 is what I'm seeing here, that they're gonna request funding for at 3.15% interest rate.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, I just wanted to identify in the notes.
And if you'd like to note, the annual debt service is around $270,000 per year.
Cool. Questions for Mr. McDaniel? Timing on this?
Request suspension, and Mrs. Kreitz is the second.
You good with that? All right, so we will ask for suspension on ordinance 1921. Thanks again, Tom. Next item I have on tonight's agenda is,
Chairman Stoughton, could I interrupt you just 1 second?
sure,
We missed one of the resolutions, 8121,
we didn't miss it.
didn't we?
Nope, we'll get to it. Okay, it's coming. Next item I have are departmental updates. Any departmental updates out there?
Just a few things to put on your radar. As part of the lateral D project, we have a very specific sewer pipe that we need to construct or use in that project. It's called Hobos pipe. It's a spun fiberglass pipe. And it's because the wastewater is so corrosive in that sewer line that we need this specific pipe. We have similar pipe on the Lawrence Street project. We found out there's a 12-week lead time on that pipe. And the lateral D project we have to have done this fall so the Parks Department can come in and start their grading so they can plant grass, so they can move ball fields, and et cetera, et cetera. We're exploring with our construction legal people how we want to do this, if we want to us buy the pipe and provide it to the contractor, or if we want to just reserve the pipe and the contractor will pay for it. So we're working on the contract language. You may see legislation at your next meeting to either waive competitive bids and purchase the pipe, or you may not, and we may just work it into the existing contract, and then you'll just see it when we bring legislation to authorize the contract. The second one I have is the concentrate line. Mike's been fighting with that one for, seems like a long time, several months. We were originally going to clean the whole line. We found that was gonna be very expensive, and we didn't know if that was even technically feasible. We've done some more investigation on the line, and now we wanna clean just a section that we've found an actual problem with. That cost was originally estimated to be about $45,000. The price we got back from one of the contractors was almost double that. So, we are in the process of putting together proposals, and we're gonna request proposals from a number of contractors. So at your next meeting, you may find a piece of legislation to waive bidding on that, and go with the contractor that we seek through these proposals. Again, I can't tell you anything more than that. We just, started working through that today.
Is that specialized kind of work, or is that, common work that, many contractors would be able to bid on?
It's specialized. It's a different kind of pipe for us, and the cleaning will have to be subcontracted. So not every contractor can do the cleaning, but no, it's not something that there's only a few contractors out there. We identified a list of 6
Okay.
to get proposals from.
And you're doing that to get a better price?
We're doing that to make sure that we get the best price we can,
Okay.
without actually going through a bid.
Okay. Well, aren't you going out for bids then?
Well, we did. We started going out for bids, and then we discovered these problems. So we wanted to do some investigation. In the course of investigation, we kind of narrowed the scope down. But now we have a timing issue.
So you're going out for bids, but it's not really a formalized bid process? is
We're
that
going
what-
out for proposals.
Okay. Okay. And then you can select one from there, and
Yes,
so you're gonna, not only, price isn't the only factor?
right.
All right, gotcha.
And we'll bring all of those back to you, so you're assured that we're getting
Sure.
a good price on that.
Okay.
And then the last item I had was, all of those items that you've now allowed me to go out for bids. Probably in July, you'll see legislation to enter into contracts. As I said in my email, the reason we didn't put all that legislation together is bid prices are all over the place, material prices are all over the place. We found out today that there aren't truck drivers to deliver materials, so we've got long lead times, and that falls into things. So we want to wait until we actually have bids, or are very close to having bids and have better estimates to do the legislation to enter the contracts. So you'll probably see that at your July meeting.
Okay. So the transportation problems have actually hit that sector. It's hitting retail terribly.
We've got some equipment at the Upper Hocking that we didn't think was, or at Lawrence Street that we didn't think was gonna be a big deal, and it's got a 22-week lead time.
Yep.
So,
Supply chains and transportation are getting killed right now.
yep.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Denise before we let her go? Very good, thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Further departmental updates? Seeing none, we will move on to President Uhl for tonight's meeting prep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one more resolution to look at tonight, 8121, a resolution agreeing to sponsor the Federal Run Stream Restoration Project coming through water pollution. Mr. James.
This particular restoration project was they tried to tail it onto the other CSO project on 1029, but through the tenacity of Miss Denise Cruz, we're going to keep going after this until we successfully get it funded. So go ahead, Denise.
I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I'm not ready to give up yet. So this will look very familiar. You passed legislation last year. The Lawrence Street project was going to be our sponsor. We didn't score high enough. We talked to Ohio EPA, and they said, well, last year was a really tough year. There were a lot of competitive projects, so they encouraged us to submit again. So we're gonna submit again and tack it on with the Upper Hocking project being our sponsor. And then that will be the last of our big projects for, I hope, a long time. So if we don't get the money through the Upper Hocking project, then we'll look at other sources of funding for this. But this is the stream restoration at OUL on Fetters Run.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Questions? What's your pleasure, Mr. James?
That'll go 3 readings, and I'll have Mr. Hall as my second on that.
Very good. 3 readings on 8121 with Mr. Hall as the second. Before I send it back over to the chairman, the only other thing I will mention tonight is the mayor has requested that we approve his appointment to the BZA. There's a replacement needed, and I think information was sent out about that. And so in new business tonight, we'll be looking for action on that particular request. Other than that, I have nothing else. I'll send it back to you, Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President, I appreciate that. One other item for finance, temporary resolution 7421 will be modified with a starred version to correct the language in the resolution to make that proper. So I'll be amending that, and then once we're done amending it, we will ask for second reading suspension on that. Are there any other items for finance?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that Finance Committee to convene into executive session to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance involving public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project, and that this executive session is necessary to protect the interest of the applicant or the possible investment or
Whatever.
whatever.
Expenditure.
Expenditure, man, Melody, of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22 G8. This executive session should include the following: finance chairman, members of the finance committee, council president, council members, law director, mayor, auditor, service secretary director, treasurer, and LPA economic development director.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I need a roll call vote. Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
And I vote yes, we are in executive session. yes. We are in the regular order of business. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
We have a second, and we are adjourned. It is 6:37, Mr. President.
The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at 6:50. If I could see, Jane.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
council, please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for this day and your many blessings. We thank you for all you do as you continue to lead and guide us forward. May you continue to help us be with the citizens of Lancaster, be with the City of Lancaster employees, and be with this council as we go about the business set before us. May your good and perfect will be done as we put the needs of the city above our own thoughts or desires and above other things so that we can move the city forward in the direction that we need to go. We ask all this in the wonderful name of your son, Jesus. Amen. I hereby call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Today is Flag Day, and if you didn't know, this flag, which is the longest serving flag in American history, was created right here in Lancaster on Marks Avenue back in 58 or 59, somewhere around there, someone who knows their history better than me. So we have a great heritage to celebrate with this flag flying across this country. Join me now, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
At least giving us the inventor's name.
Hold on. It's, wait for it.
Uh-huh.
I know it.
Starts with a Bob and ends with a...
Heft. Yeah, I got the last part. That's a Bob Heft. Thanks, Tom.
He got a B- on that project.
I know. It's a true story.
That's terrible.
Bad
Terrible.
grade.
Bad
Yeah,
grade.
Tough grades.
Tough grade, yeah, yes, indeed. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Here.
Mrs. Kreitz? Here. Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. James?
Here.
Mr. Matlin?
Here.
Mr. McDaniel?
Here.
Mr. Schoonover?
Here.
Mr. Stoughton?
Here.
And Mrs. Teener?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all 9 members of Lancaster City Council are in attendance tonight, reading and disposing of the journal.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated May 24th, 2021.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the journal. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports of city officials.
Email dated June 3rd, 2020 regarding economic development meeting minutes submitted by Mr. McDaniel. Email dated June 3rd, 2021 regarding service committee meeting agenda submitted by Mrs. Teener. Email dated June 9th, 2021 regarding the Public Works meeting agenda submitted by Mr. Schoonover. And finally, an email dated June 14th, 2021 regarding the finance agenda submitted by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of city officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any communications?
There are none to be presented.
I know that it says we have some things under special presentations. Those go down under public hearings. I don't know of any special presentations tonight, so we'll move on to petitions or memorials.
A petition for the annexation of property located at 0 Lancaster Circleville Road, Southwest Lancaster, containing 25.8723 plus or minus acres in Hocking Township was received on Wednesday, May 26, 2021 at 11:56 a.m. from attorney Laura McGregor-Comack, agent for the petitioner. The complete copy of the petition is available online or by contacting the clerk of council.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the petition.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the petition. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. During this time at Lancaster City Council, we set time aside to allow the voters and taxpayers of the city to address City Council on any item or issue you would like. If you're interested in addressing Lancaster City Council tonight, please come forward to the podium. Sign in on the green clipboard that the auditor has just placed there. Yeah, oh, you were going like that. Yes, that is up there. Sign in on that, please. And then state your name and address for the record as well. Please note that during this time, Lancaster City Council members will not respond to you or answer any questions, but they may choose to do so at a later portion in tonight's meeting. In accordance with the rules of City Council, we ask that you would keep all comments to 5 minutes or less. With that, is there anyone who would like to address Lancaster City Council? I'll note we do have 2 public hearings tonight. This is not the time for comments on the public hearings. This is just the general time for anyone to discuss any item or issue that they would like. This is the last call. Very good. Well, thank you all for being here this evening. Are there reports of standing committees?
There are Finance Committee meeting minutes dated June 14, 2021, submitted by Mr. Stoughton. Economic Development meetings dated March 18th, 2021, and May 20th, 2021, submitted by Mr. Daniel, and a Service Committee meeting dated June 4th, 2021, submitted by Mrs. Tina.
Did you get it all out?
Yes, that's it, sorry.
Okay, it's all right.
Here, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second?
A motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Other reports of special committees.
There are none to be presented.
As I mentioned, we do have two public hearings this evening. We're going to begin with temporary resolution 6521, the tax budget. I expect just multitudes of people to be here to talk about the tax budget tonight. Before I go through the entire spiel, is there anyone here who is planning to speak either as a proponent or opponent on the tax budget this evening? Imagine my surprise.
Puzzling.
I can't believe it.
Disappointing.
I'm floored. All right, well, thank you very much. We will consider that public hearing then closed, and we will move on to temporary resolution 6821, a public hearing on CDBG. CDBG. That's what I said. I almost had it out.
You gotta say it fast.
Yeah, CDBG. It's not the marijuana stuff. It's something different.
That's called marijuana, flags.
I told you I was wound up tonight.
You are, but
I just got back from vacation. All right, very good. Well, we are glad to have Miss Linda Disserberg here tonight to discuss with us the, yes. Yeah, we'll get there. And she's got a presentation, and the clerk's reminding me that before we do that, we're gonna read the preamble. We'll then toss it to the sponsor for opening comments, and then we will allow you to do your thing. You stand right, it won't take long at all.
Ready?
Yes, go for it.
A resolution approving and authorizing the mayor to submit to the submit to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Lancaster's fiscal year FY 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and Statement of Objectives, offered by Mr. McDaniel.
Thank you very much, Mr. McDaniel.
Yeah, just real short, this is our annual authorizing and approving of the CBDG block grant. We're anticipating $511,607. The fiscal year 2021 plan is consistent with our Consolidated Housing and Community Development Plan from fiscal year 2018 to 2022. And we must pass and approve this plan to expend money, and planned expenditures are outlined in the resolution.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Please.
Good evening. It's so great to see everyone in person. I'm Linda Berge-Disser, Executive Director of the Community Development Department. So the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG program, is a program of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, affectionately known as HUD, to support affordable housing, economic development, and community activities benefiting individuals with families and families with low incomes. Funding is provided to cities and counties either as a direct allocation or through the state. The City of Lancaster receives a direct allocation each year, and the use of these funds is guided by CDBG program requirements and by the city's 5-year consolidated plan. We are currently in the middle of our 5-year plan, which covers 2018 through 2022. Our annual allocation is provided in a fiscal year from September 1st through August 31st. So this year, fiscal year 2021, will fund activities from September 2021 to August of 2022. Our process for spending this year's allocation started with the notice of funding available, which was sent out to City Council, community partners, and interested individuals, and posted to our webpage on March 17th. As a CDBG grantee, we are required to conduct 2 public hearings. We held the first on March 30th by virtual conference, and I'm pleased that we could hold our second public hearing this evening in person at City Council. The process of determining how funds are spent includes monthly meetings with the Fairfield County Housing Coalition, a group of dedicated individuals who I have had the pleasure to get to know this year, albeit by Zoom. These members represent human service organizations that engage in homelessness, prevention, services for homeless people, and affordable housing for people and families with low incomes. I want to make a special note at this time to say I could speak on and on about the commitment of the individuals who serve these organizations and their ability to collaborate and the great work that they're doing to serve our community. I am the chair of the Housing Coalition by virtue of my position, and I have learned a lot and really appreciate everything that the members bring to these meetings. In addition to monthly Housing Coalition meetings, I've met in person with housing organizations to discuss affordable housing and economic development needs for people with low incomes in Lancaster and how we can, as a community, address them. Next, we reviewed funding requests that were submitted and discussed them with the city's Economic Development Committee. We write our recommendations into an annual action plan describing activities to be funded this year. The annual action plan will be posted on our website tomorrow. Again, thrilling reading, for a 30-day public comment period and submitted to HUD by July 15th for approval before August 31st. Our allocation is, for this year, is $511,607. Administration funds are limited to 20% of the allocation, and we're limited to 15% for public service activities. So you have our list. We recommend the following. I'll start with our homeowner housing rehabilitation and repair. So we're recommending $150,000, and this is for homeowners who meet the low-income qualifications, and we can do everything from a roof repair, a furnace that's gone out, up to a more substantial rehab. We have a lead hazard control grant from HUD. It's about $500,000 a year, and we're using CDBG funds as part of that match. So this is 1/3 of our match for that is $23,500. We also set aside funds for fair housing activities. We are responsible for fair housing for all of the county, actually, by virtue of receiving CDBG funds. You may recall that last year we set aside funds for neighborhood improvement, and we targeted the South End neighborhood. Those activities are going very well. We just had a dedication of community garden, and but we're still active in that neighborhood. So we haven't moved on to a new neighborhood or allocated new funding for neighborhood activities because we're still using those funds and working in that neighborhood. We are setting aside $110,000 for commercial building renovation. We have received applications for several projects. We'd like to use county and city American Rescue Plan funds first for infrastructure for those projects, and then whatever funds we can't use for those projects, we'll fund those projects with CDBG. We haven't named those addresses because we haven't done an environmental review. And again, we want to use other funds first. So I know I'm running out of time, but we want to fund nonprofits doing workforce development to help those who are hard to employ, or folks that have a hard time finding employment, to connect them with jobs. And then we have Fairfield Center for Disabilities, building ramps and other home modifications for folks with low incomes. The Lancaster Fairfield Community Actions Family Shelter. The Lighthouse provides advocacy for people with who are victims of domestic violence. Fairfield 211 assists folks with housing, every kind of range of folks with housing needs. New Horizons helps folks with mental illness and substance abuse with housing needs. And Southeast Ohio Legal Services provides legal services for fair housing and other tenant-landlord issues. Thank goodness they're the attorneys. We aren't. We are happy to fund the Lancaster Police Department. Their community services unit does a lot for our community, and we're happy to partner with them. United Way of Fairfield County provides a tax program doing taxes for older folks and for low-income folks. Big Brothers and Big Sisters provides a great service mentoring youth, and Foundation Dinners provides substance abuse recovery for folks that come and use their services. So we're happy with this slate of grantees, and again, just can't say enough about our community partners.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ms. Disser. Before we let you go, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Disser before we move on with the remainder of the public hearing? Well, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your work. Mr. Stoughton has been around a lot longer than I have, but to my recollection, I don't know that we've had a public hearing on CBDG here in City Council before, and so I appreciate you bringing this information. We always talk about it. Of course, we have to do the legislation for it, but to have this public hearing tonight, I think, is perhaps the first time, and so thanks for the idea and for bringing it forward, and thanks for all that you're doing with CDBG. I'm particularly excited about neighborhood development. Those types of things are very cool, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. We want to encourage more citizen participation in our department and in our programs. So just want to encourage more folks to get involved.
Very good. Thank you so much. All right, with that, we will continue on with the public hearing then and open it up tonight to proponents and opponents. Before I go through the spiel, is there anyone who plans to speak either as a proponent or opponent of this legislation this evening? No? Well, then we will save some time and say thank you again to each of you. Oh, he's got his hand up. Okay, so we do have a proponent and opponent. So I will go through the spiel very quickly, sir, and you come forward. Sign in if you don't mind. Yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead and sign in while I do my thing, and we'll just keep moving. So during a public hearing, proponents and opponents have the opportunity to speak for or against the legislation that is before us. Tonight, we will allow proponents, those who are for this legislation, to speak first, and then we will allow any opponents to speak after that. Once we get through that round, then proponents who spoke in the first round have opportunity to speak again in rebuttal during the second round, and any opponents then would have opportunity to do the same. We've already read the preamble, we've had the presentation, and Mr. McDaniel's made his opening comments, and so I see a proponent here, sir. Please go ahead with your comments.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Clinton Davis. I'm from Lancaster Fairfield Community Action. As one of the social service agencies on the list, I want to thank Community Development for their really thoughtful approach to reviewing grant applications and really considering what needs are faced within the community and how to best serve those with these CDBG funds. I appreciate the proposal that's coming for you. It incorporates both community service and actions by the city and looks at commercial needs and incorporates those, but also looks at using other funds from ARP and from the other federal stimulus money that might be coming into the community as targeted funds for that approach. So I just want to speak in support of it and say thank you for all the good work that you all are doing and for supporting the work that we do.
That's great. Thank you for being here, sir. Very good. Is there anyone else who is a proponent and would like to speak in favor of this? Yes, ma'am. You can sign in afterward and go ahead with your comments.
Hi, I'm Heather Currens. I'm with New Horizons Mental Health Services, and I just want to convey how important this CDBG grant is to the community. For the last several years, we've been able to help about 25 families either obtain housing or keep their housing. And those are families with low income, but also with mental illness and or substance abuse disorders, which are a particularly vulnerable population.
Very good. Thank you for being here. Anyone else who would like to speak as a proponent in support of the legislation this evening? If not, we will move on then to opponents. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to this legislation this evening? Okay, we'll then return to proponents. There was no opposition, so I don't know that anyone has rebuttal, but either of you have opportunity to come back if you'd like. I know you were so excited about being here the first time, I could tell. You both did great. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that some of the organizations that are being funded came tonight to speak and to help us understand a little bit more about the impact that these dollars have. So thank you for being here. There were no opponents, so no one has opportunity to speak in rebuttal against this legislation. One of the things I did fail to do was mention that unlike voter and taxpayer time, members of council do have opportunity to ask questions. And so does anyone around the table have a question for either one who spoke here tonight or for Ms. Disser as we close? Okay, if not, Mr. McDaniel, I'll turn it back to you.
Just in closing, at our Economic Development Committee meetings, we were able to go over much of this information, have discussion about decisions and input from Linda and her office as to why some decisions were made. And I think we've spoken about this in pretty good detail.
Great. Very good. All right, and we have a second reading on this evening, right?
Second reading.
Very good. All right. With that, then, we will close this public hearing and continue to move through the agenda for tonight, again, with our thanks for each one who was here tonight speaking in favor of this legislation. With that, we'll move to the third reading of temporary resolution 61-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for a request for qualifications for a construction manager at risk and submit requests for proposals for capital improvements to City Hall. Offered by Mr. Hall, seconded by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. President, city management desires to move forward with long overdue renovations to City Hall. And to protect our interests, they are recommending that we solicit bids for qualifications and also proposals, requests for proposals for a construction manager at risk. That is a term of art. The individual who is selected will not actually be at risk, but that person will protect our financial risk as we move forward with what could be some very expensive and technically challenging renovations to our City Hall.
Okay, what's your pleasure, Steve?
My pleasure at this point is that I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 61-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 61-21. Mr. Hall, do you have further comments this evening?
I do not.
Anyone have questions or comments tonight as we work through this? Yes, Ms. Bobbitt.
I apologize for not calling you sooner and asking you this question, but it just popped in my mind. And we've talked around the table about, you know, maybe the cost of these renovations might be too extreme. How will we be, you know, so we pass this legislation tonight, and then you're gonna go out for this RFP to get this person or persons. And then we'll decide what work will be done. What happens if we don't do any work? I'm sure maybe in their contract, they're going to say something like, well, you're gonna owe me this much money if you don't proceed with what needs to be done? Do you get what I'm saying?
Right, this is
Okay.
simply a request for qualifications. Then I bring together a committee to set, to decide who we would select to represent us through this project.
Okay, I'm misunderstanding.
Correct, it's a request for qualifications. When we engage with this person, we'd probably come back to council. I mean, we'd ask for a proposal, and then we would engage later on as we're thinking about. My desire is, I know we're well behind the need to renovate City Hall. We're not talking about restoring it to original appearance and looks. We're talking about a very good, reasonable renovation for a lot of needs that are there. My idea is I would love to see that construction begin next year, maybe get everything together here and go out to bid for that project in the wintertime. So you'll see other legislation before council if we go forward to this. Yes, money is the big deal, of course, and so we have started something, 5 years ago, I came before council to investigate this building, to get professionals in here and evaluate it from an architectural engineer point of view. We still have all those studies. I kind of also had them updated, and we're looking at several $1 million to renovate this. My estimates right now is it could be around $5 to $6 million at this time, but who knows with this market? It might be that we have to delay it. I don't know. I know that I would love to see it get done, but there's a lot to be determined from that at this time. I do know this, we'll probably easily spend about $500,000 to have it scaffolded all the way to the top. And I feel like when you invest that much money in the scaffolding, you should definitely do everything that is involved with what it takes to take advantage of that scaffolding. We would not want this scaffold twice. Professional companies do it, they rent it to us, lease it to us. So every component fits into where we can do, especially on the outside envelope from top to bottom. Can't wait to see what's at the top of the tower with that stick, that post sticking up there that used to have the American flag on that building. But there's a lot of things that can be done. So our desire is just to find a person to represent us and our interest, as Councilman Hall said, to reduce our risks through this process.
Thank you.
So, yes, Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, when you start throwing out numbers like, $5 and $6 million, you have to start thinking about, at least from a finance perspective, replace versus repair. That's a big nut, a lot of money. And even to the point where, we're not even restoring, we're basically just remedying the problems that are in there. And, for those that have never been into City Hall, we've kind of retrofitted offices into there. So, but I assume that certainly council will have plenty of opportunity for input on this process. I mean, I don't disagree with you. It needs some significant work. So I look forward to kind of pushing this down the field. And then the other problem we have here is obviously the price of construction materials and labor at this point in time is just nuts. So, it may require us to push out a little bit until the market kind of levels out a little bit. So nevertheless, appreciate you doing this. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Stoughton. Anyone else? I'll just mention briefly that I don't know that it is an often used in the city of Lancaster strategy, but construction manager at risk has been utilized before. It was utilized for the Columbian project, and I had the opportunity to sit on the committee that worked through the process of selecting the construction manager at risk and going through all those proposals and procedures. And so I think to your point, Mr. Stone, we got a little while before we're going to get there. Hopefully construction costs will come down by then, but I think this is a good direction forward to at least start that process. Anyone else have further questions or comments before we call the question? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 61-21 passes 9-0. We now have second reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 65-21.
A resolution adopting the 2022 tax budget of the city of Lancaster for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022, and submitting same to the Fairfield County Auditor, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Bobbit.
I already signed it. I wasn't going to sign it, but I already signed it. Dang it. I wasn't paying attention. All right, Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporary 6521.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 65-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yeah, I am asking for suspension tonight to get anything that we can get off of the docket tonight as we prepare for the 28th, which then kind of is that gap before the July meeting. So that's my reason for suspension this evening.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporary 6521, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 65-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We are required to present the 2022 tax budget for the city to the county by July 1st. We were also required to have a public hearing today that, as you saw, we had a whole army of people not show up to want to discuss. It's the best guess of revenue and of revenues for the city for 2022 for county planning purposes. So, again, it's a requirement. I think we're one of a couple counties that still requires this.
Yes.
Yes. We will, I'm asking that we pass this tonight and get this up to the county so they can start working it.
Thank you, Mr. Stoughton. Further discussion? I'm working to hold it in. And further discussion before we move forward. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 65-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 68-21.
A resolution approving and authorizing the mayor to submit to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Lancaster fiscal year FY 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and Statement of Objectives offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. McDaniel.
Second reading.
Second reading on temporary resolution 68-21. Temporary resolution 69-21.
A resolution declaring the necessity of an election on the question of approving the passage of an ordinance to amend section 183.012, 183.013, and 183.02 of the codified ordinances of the city of Lancaster, Ohio, in order to increase the city income tax rate for parks and recreation to 0.25%, 25%, continuing beginning January 1st, 2023, on earnings and income for parks and recreation as more fully set forth herein and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. Stoughton, seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. This will be the second of 3 readings, please.
Second of 3 readings on temporary resolution 69-21. Temporary resolution 74-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to dispense with competitive bidding pursuant to the Master Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchasing Agreement administered by Omnia, Partner Public Sector, for the purchase of roofing materials and services, and to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the County Auditor in the Wastewater Fund 6004, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council amend Resolution Temporary 7421 by replacing it with Resolution Temporary 7421 star as given to the clerk in writing before tonight's meeting.
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second to amend temporary resolution 74-21 and replace it with temporary resolution 74-21 star as given to the clerk in writing prior to tonight's meeting. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The amendment is to clean up the proper language required in the resolution to enter this purchasing cooperative.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to amend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
The motion to amend carries 9-0. We now have before us temporary resolution 74-21 star. Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the 3rd reading, Resolution Temporary 7421 star, please.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the 3rd reading of temporary resolution 74-21 star. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm asking for suspension tonight on this, as it's been previously discussed. And secondly, we have projects pending that we are going to use this new purchasing cooperative to acquire materials and services. So I'm asking for suspension tonight.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Resolution Temporary 7421 star, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 74-21 star. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 74-21 star passes 9-0. We now have first reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 76-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in the LDOT Fund 2008 for the purchase of a Craftco Patch 2 hot mastic machine, offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. Schoonover.
First of 3 readings, please.
First of 3 readings on temporary resolution 76-21, temporary resolution 77-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Zane Alley Sewer Lining Project, offered by Mr. James, seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
Yes, first of 2 readings, please.
First of 2 readings on temporary resolution 77-21, temporary resolution 78-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the combined sewer overflow 1029, CSO 1029 reconstruction project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
First of 2 readings, please.
First of 2 readings on temporary resolution 78-21, temporary resolution 79-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the Wiley Road Water Loop project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
Once again, first of 2 readings.
First of 2 readings on temporary resolution 79-21, temporary resolution 80-21.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency Water Pollution Control Loan Fund Program and to execute contracts as required, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Skinner.
Mr. James.
This is the first of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 80-21. Temporary resolution 81-21.
A resolution agreeing to sponsor the Fetters Run OUL Stream Restoration Project by participating in the Water Resources Restoration Sponsor Program in conjunction with the Hawking WPCF Upgrade Water Pollution Control Loan Fund, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
Yes, this is the first of three readings, please.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 81-21. Temporary resolution 82-21.
A resolution authorizing a tax incentive review council pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.85 and non-discriminatory hiring practice in the operation of a business granted tax exemptions pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.832 in furtherance of economic development, offered by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 8221.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 82-21. Discussion, Mr. McDaniel?
Not at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 8221.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 82-21. Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, this legislation will establish a tax incentive review council and outlines the membership and responsibilities of that council.
Very good.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 82-21 passes 9-0. Are there further resolutions to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we'll move on to the reading of ordinances, beginning with the third reading of temporary ordinance 15-21.
An ordinance of the City of Lancaster to expand the current designated outdoor refreshment area and repeal and replace existing Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 7 Business Regulations Code, Chapter 705, Outdoor Refreshment Area of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mr. Hall, seconded by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporarily numbered 15-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 15-21. Discussion, Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. President, our current Dora ordinance is due to expire. This particular piece of legislation makes some minor adjustments. It enlarges the designated refreshment area slightly. We're still well within state mandates. This has been a very successful operation for the city, and this expansion should further enhance our economic efforts. So we think that it's time to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 15-21 passes 9-0. We now have second reading on temporary ordinance 17-21.
An ordinance to amend section 183.012, 183.013, and 183.02 of the codified ordinances of the City of Lancaster, Ohio, in order to increase the city income tax rate for parks and recreation to 0.25% of 1%, 25%, continuing beginning January 1st, 2023 on earnings and income for parks and recreation as more fully set forth herein, and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. Stoughton, seconded by Mrs. Bobbit.
Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. This will be the second of three readings, please.
Second of three readings on temporary ordinance 17-21. We now have first reading on temporary ordinance 19-21.
An ordinance declaring the improvements of certain real property located in the City of Lancaster, Fairfield County, Ohio, to be a public purpose, declaring such property to be exempt from real property taxation, designating specific public infrastructure improvements that once made will directly benefit the parcels for which the improvements is dedicated to be a public purpose, requiring annual service payments in lieu of taxes, requiring minimum service payments, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund, authorizing the execution of a tax increment financing and cooperative agreement, authorizing the execution of a revenue sharing agreement, providing related authorization pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code sections 570940B, 5709.42, 5709.43, 5709.832, and 5709.85, and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of ordinance temporary number 1921.
Second. Whoops.
That's right. We got both of them. That's right. Someone's
No,
thinking.
it's her.
It's Ms. Kreitz. That's right. Very good. All right, we have a motion in 2 seconds to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary ordinance 19-21. Mr. McDaniel.
Not at this time.
Any discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that, sorry, wrong one. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass and engross and enter upon the written record ordinance temporary number 1921.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 19-21. Discussion on the motion to pass.
I have a couple of things. Just a reminder, we talked about this both at last council meeting and at finance this evening. But for those that don't know, this is a little bit different TIF than what we have done previously. This is a developer reimbursement TIF. Again, that means that the developers are responsible for securing the bond funding, and it is for public infrastructure and they are solely liable for servicing the bond debt with exempted real estate tax dollars. Also, this TIF only applies to public infrastructure improvements for the commercial development of the property and does not and will not apply to single-family housing development. Again, we went over a lot of the numbers, significant investment by the developer. When these public infrastructure is put in place, I should say, ultimately, those things will be dedicated back to the city and will be responsible for upkeep in the future. But the debt for putting those in place falls back to the developer in this particular case.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbit?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 19-21 passes 9-0. Are there any further ordinances to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we don't have any tabled legislation on the agenda tonight. Is there any unfinished business? Does anyone have new business? We do need to take action on the mayor's appointment to the BZA. Would there be, Mr. Mayor, would you run us through the applicant or the person you're recommending, please?
Yes, first of all, the BZA consists of 5 members. Lindy Jackson, who is a former city service safety director, has been a member for a number of years, and his term was up, and he asked not to be reappointed as he anticipates spending a lot more time out of town in his retirement. The recommended person is Belinda Nebergall, who is the Assistant Director of the Fairfield County Land Bank. She's also has been a member of the Fairfield County Board of Tax Revision. She works in Jim Bonson's office at the County Treasurer and comes highly recommended for this position.
Very good.
So she'll take over July 1st. She'll become a member July 1st.
Very good, thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion to confirm the mayor's appointment? Ms. Bobbitt?
First off, I'd like to thank Lenny Jackson for all of his years that he's put into the BZA. And I'd like to make a motion that we put on the committee, her name again?
Belinda Nebergall.
Belinda, yeah. Belinda.
Thank you, Ms. Bobbitt. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I heard both at the same time.
Well, I like to do it in tandem with everything.
You're on it
Pick Don.
tonight. It's in stereo. Yeah,
We'll let him
we'll
in.
give it to Mr. McDaniel.
That's just the economic development committee thing we do.
Right, yeah, it's great.
That's how we play, right?
So we have a motion and a second to confirm the mayor's appointment to the BZA. Would there be any discussion? Mr. Toad?
I just want to echo, I want to thank Lindy as well. He did a great job, and ironically, he will be traveling quite a bit in his retirement, so good for him.
And his last meeting was today.
Oh, very
BZA
good.
met today, so today was his last meeting, and we did have an opportunity to thank him at the meeting.
Did he work, or did he kind of mail it in?
No, he worked.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not, yeah.
And he made his final motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh,
There you go. Very good. Well, I'll echo that. Thanks. Lindy has served and served for a good number of years, and the BZA is not always an easy appointment. Things come before the BZA. People want to do something that they're not able to do outside of that approval, and so it can be a challenging process. But we appreciate Lindy and his commitment and service to the city. Further discussion on the motion to confirm the appointment. Okay, we have to do roll call. Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Tina?
Yes.
Very good. The confirmation, or the appointment is confirmed, and please pass along our thanks to Ms. Nabergau for her willingness to serve. Is there other new business this evening that anyone would like to discuss? If not, we'll ask that the clerk read our announcement of upcoming scheduled meetings.
Next meeting is June 28th. The meeting following is July 19th, both meetings 6:30 PM here in council chambers. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Finance Committee, June 28th, 6 PM here in council chambers, and Water Pollution, July 14th at 8 AM at the City Hall 1897 Conference Room.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stoughton referenced it. It's not obvious from looking at this schedule, but in July, we do have just one meeting. And so that's one of the 2 months where we meet only once. And so whatever we can do to make sure folks realize that, so that there's not stuff stopped up in the process, I think would be helpful. Are there any bills this evening?
One bill, PNC, payable to MNCO for publication of legislation in the amount of $250.10.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bill.
And I second that motion.
A motion and a second to pay the bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a need for an executive session? If not, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, I would like to make that motion. We adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Please remember to sign your legislation. Thank you all very much. Have a great week. Drop that in.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.